Three, two, one.
Here we go!
Might be the only brown guy on earth named Joe Bob.
That is actually her name, Joe Bob.
Live from the dingy bunker that is completely and totally cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. My name is Joe Bob. Thanks so much for tuning in on today. It is Wednesday, the year of our Lord, 2023. The date, January 31st. Forgot about that. Thanks so much for tuning in. Got a lot to get to. Apparently, there is a corrupt, possibly, allegedly, member of Congress who also is a member of the Squad and a BLM activist. Huh! Who would have guessed that? Also, apparently judges can veto your salary, which is a weird thing that I didn't know that could happen. And also, pro-lifers who protested in an abortion clinic 3 years ago almost, were were found guilty and face 11 years in prison. The inconsistencies in our legal system are absolutely freaking astonishing, but we'll get to all of that and more. Maybe we'll get to Nancy Pelosi's house being protested again, and then a hilarious clip that maybe we'll sneak in at the end of the show. But I want to get to this first and foremost. Cori Bush, member of the Squad and BLM activist turned Congresswoman, is being investigated by the DOJ for misusing campaign funds. Wow! I am just shocked here. I am flabbergasted. I cannot believe that this is happening. Representative Cori Bush, D, Missouri, the St. Louis area, if you don't know, confirmed Tuesday that the Department of Justice is investigating her for campaign spending on security services, quote-unquote security services. Just to be fair, I'll read part of her statement. She says, "Since before I was sworn into office, I have endured relentless threats to my physical safety and life." We'll leave that there. Since, as a rank-and-file member of Congress, I'm not entitled to personal protection by the House, instead, I've used campaign funds as permissible to retain security services. That is the story that she is going with, that she used her campaign funds to have a security officer with her in order to make sure that she was safe. Now, before we get into the hinkiness of who the security officer is and whether or not she paid this person appropriately, let's all remember this clip from Cori Bush in 2021 when she was an ardent supporter of defund the police. Watch this.
You can't get that off. I'm going to make sure I have security because I know I have had attempts on my life and I have too much work to do. There are too many people that need help right now for me to allow that. So if I end up spending $200,000, if I spend $10 more on it, you know what? I get to be here to do the work. So suck it up, and defunding the police has to happen. We need to defund the police and put that money into social safety nets because we're trying to save lives.
Okay. So that's the kind of person that Cori Bush is, again saying, we need to defund the police and take police out of your neighborhoods to not keep you safe. But of course, and she says it out loud too, I, of course, need security services because I have important work to do, as if the work that you have to do is not important. She's working for the people and to enrich herself, but she's working for the people. And your paltry, dumb job that you go to pay taxes to pay for what she does is insignificant. You don't deserve safety. Defund the police needs to happen. So that's the type of person Cori Bush is. So again, just a sheer and utter shock that the DOJ is investigating her. Now, who is her security guard? How much was she paying them? Bush says she is fully cooperating with the Justice Department and declined to comment further. The St. Louis Democrat says she retained her now husband. Oh, this is a first. I've never seen a situation in which a congressperson puts their significant other or extended family on the campaign payroll. Holy moly, this is a shock. Her now husband as a part of the security team and claims that he is able to provide security services at or below market rate. Now, here's the interesting thing about this. Congressional ethics rules for members of the House of Representatives permit family members to be paid from campaign funds for bona fide services so long as payments do not exceed fair market value. So, in other words, you're allowed to hire your significant other or your spouse or your daughter or your son or your cousin or your uncle or your aunt or your grandma to work for the campaign staff. Because it's not tax dollars, it's money that's coming into your campaign. And in some states, and this is crazy, you can take a salary yourself for running for Congress. Jamal Bowman pays himself $30,000 every time he runs for Congress, on top of the money that he makes in Congress and on top of the speaking fees and all that sort of stuff. He takes money out of his own campaign to pay himself. And he's not the only person that does that. There are several Republicans that do that as well, and it's also just as bad. He just happens to be the example that's in my head right now. The bottom line is you can pay your family. Whether or not you think that's a good idea or whether or not you think that's appropriate, that is a topic of discussion for another time. But the bottom line is the rules say that you can do it, but you have to pay them at a fair market value, which is why she's being investigated by the DOJ, because her now husband, who was her just regular boyfriend at the time, made $500,000 over the course of 2 years. Now, I've hired security services, armed security for different things. They don't cost that much. And I'm not belittling the security job, but $250,000 a year is like double or triple the amount of money that it costs to have security. Now, if you're talking about a full security team, that's one thing. This particular instance is just her now husband who got paid above market rate, let's just say, or at least it looks like, which is what triggered the investigation into Cori Bush. Now, Cori Bush, obviously being the type of person that she is almost guaranteed to say, well, they're investigating me because I'm a black woman. Okay, well, if you're going to go that route, let me point out Maxine Waters, who has been paying her family handsomely throughout the entirety of her congressional career. If you don't know this, Maxine Waters is also a congresswoman from the Southern California area who happens to be a black woman. She also instigated a crowd and probably sparked some riots when she was the person that said, when we see MAGA people or Republicans in public, push back on them and create a crowd. Whole different story, but anyways, that's the same lady. Maxine Waters, who also happens to be a black woman, has been paying her family extraordinarily well, but not necessarily over the market value, which is why she is not being investigated. Well, how much has Maxine Waters been paying her family? Well, enough to buy an extraordinarily nice house that is outside of the dilapidated district that she represents. So, Cori, when you say they're investigating me because I'm a black woman and you try to play the race card, just know that there are other black women that are doing the same exact thing as you, except for they're doing it by the rules, which is both helpful and irritating at the same time. The helpful part is, no, it's not because of your race, it's because you paid him an exorbitant amount to do a job that isn't worth what you're paying him for. The scary part, and the frustrating and irritating part about that is, apparently, it is okay to be corrupt, but you have to be corrupt correctly, which is not awesome. You can be corrupt, but you have to be corrupt correctly, which, okay, not sure how okay I am with that. And since Cori Bush is at the topic of discussion, I want to bring this up because, well, I thought it was interesting, and it just so happened to appear on the Twitter's feed stream of a bunch of people last night. This is Cori Bush tweeting a thing yesterday. Now, let me read you the tweet specifically before I show the picture. But again, this is entirely separate from this. Actually, maybe it's not. Maybe it's I'm trying to drive attention to the whole race card thing in the midst of this DOJ investigation. But Cori Bush tweeted this: every single person deserves safety and peace in their relationship. I don't know about deserves, but I'm not against safety and peace in relationships. St. Louis, join us next Wednesday, January, yada, 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 for a telephone town hall talking about domestic violence resources, which again, don't really have any issue with that. The problem is that tweet was coupled with this picture. A picture that says black women are 3 times more likely to die as a result of intimate partner abuse than white women. Okay, didn't need to take it racial, but now that you did, Matt Walsh pointed something out which should be obvious to everybody watching this, and myself included. Okay, are we just going to gloss over the thing that you're suggesting? Right, because if you're suggesting, well, this is terrible, by the way. If black women, if this stat is true, which, again, it came from a person in Congress, so who knows. But if this stat is true, it's awful and terrible. And also, you have to ask the question, okay, wait, who then is it that is killing black women at a 3 times higher rate in intimate relationships? I'll let you answer that question in your own mind, but I'll just leave it out there posed as Cori Bush does with this random fact, which again is not good. Like, I'm not celebrating the fact here, but if you're going to take it racial, don't you have to also judge the other side or the perpetrator of the thing that you're claiming is bad, which I agree is bad. But anyways, that is Cori Bush, the Congresswoman from St. Louis, who again is facing effectively corruption charges. It's not really, it's misuse of campaign finance, but that is what's going on there. I want to get to this because this irritates me immensely, and I hate to just irritate everybody on a nice Wednesday morning or afternoon, depending on where you are in the country. But this yesterday happened. A bunch of pro-lifers in Nashville, the Nashville area, a bunch of pro-lifers who were protesting in front of an abortion clinic were hit with and found guilty of 2 federal crimes. Yeah, 6 people who were protesting in front of an abortion clinic. Again, protesting, which is a whole thing that we now, I don't know, have redefined, I guess. But if you're going to call something a protest, this was a protest. It wasn't a riot in the street. Nobody was burning down buildings. Nobody was smashing private property. These people were sitting in a lobby, singing songs and hymns and praying. Again, you don't have to agree with any of that. But relative to the other quote-unquote protests that we've seen recently, this doesn't seem all that bad. I'm going to play you a clip from this, and we can discuss on the other side. This is probably just, I don't know if we're going to play through the whole thing, because it's basically a minute of the same thing, but these people. Let me ask you this. Is this protest, in the comment section, let me know, is this protest peaceful or is it mostly peaceful? And I think you know what I mean by that. Watch this.
know what
All right, that's that's what it was. It seems like pretty much in the entirety of that whole situation, that's what was happening there. And, it was difficult to just watch the total and utter carnage, the chaos that existed when those protesters who were mostly peaceful tore down the office building, lit cars on fire, and destroyed private property, costing the city that they were in billions of dollars in damages and hiking up insurance rates for businesses. All of the terrible things happened there in that video clip. Except for, wait, they didn't. And even though many people with eyeballs, which is most people, think that, well, yeah, that seems like a thing that you should be allowed to do, the feds decided to hit them with charges, and they were recently, yesterday, found guilty of those charges. 6 pro-life protesters were charged with felony counts of participation in a March 2021 prayer event, witnessing to life. I'm reading from the Thomas More Society, which I'm not sure of their act, but this all seemed, pretty straightforward here. The charges included 1 count of violating the FACE Act, which is the freedom of access to clinic entrances, and 1 count of engaging in conspiracy against rights. Charged together, they carry a sentence of up to 11 years and were found guilty of those crimes. Now, notwithstanding the double standards and the hypocrisy and the inconsistencies blow my mind. It is unbelievable that this is they're throwing the books. The federal government, by the way, not Tennessee, the federal government, the Biden administration, is throwing the book at people who are sitting on the floor singing when you have literal rioters ravaging an entire town, nobody getting arrested, and those who did get arrested got bailed out by the vice president and the fund that she was a part of. Okay. All of that aside, I wonder if this is an interesting point in time for the American people and protesters, not because of witnessing the utter and total hypocrisy, but instead, maybe if there is a bright spot, this could trigger a reversion back to when protesting actually meant something. One of my issues for a long time has been protesters who are protesting in the streets with zero fear of consequences don't have to believe in the thing that they are quote-unquote protesting for. They can have ulterior motives if there are no consequences. If you're, let's say, raiding a Walmart and lighting the electronics department on fire, if you have no fear of any sort of repercussion or consequence, your reasoning for doing what you're doing can be a myriad of things. Maybe, just maybe there are some people in those riots that are protesting for injustice and fixing all of the problems, whatever. But at the end of the day, if there's no consequences for you breaking the law in the midst of your protest, that means that you don't really believe in the thing that you're protesting for. If there are consequences and you know about those consequences and you make a conscious decision to do the protest anyway, and again, if they're sitting in here, and we'll get to some of the legality of this quote-unquote FACE Act and whether or not it looks like they actually did break the law, but let's just say hypothetically, for sake of argument, they did break the law. And if they did break the law, and they did do it knowingly, and also didn't destroy property in the meantime, what that says to me is that the people who are sitting in this lobby of this abortion clinic actually believe what they're protesting for. I don't get that from your BLM protesters, your Hamas supporters. Because in the streets, the lefties have just let these people run amok, and because of that, There are so many other people mixed in. I would say the vast majority of the people mixed into those protests, mostly peaceful protests, and riots, who don't actually believe in the cause that they're out there, quote unquote, supporting. Because there are no consequences for people breaking the law on the other side of the aisle, there's no justification and no reason to believe that they believe what they're, quote unquote, protesting for. On this side, while I completely disagree with the ruling and the possible sentencing of these people, at the very least, they believe in what they're talking about. And you can disagree. I don't happen to disagree with them. I wholeheartedly agree with their cause and support what they're doing. But at the end of the day, since they know that there are consequences that they will be facing and are willing to do it anyway, that gives credence to what it is that they're doing, as opposed to a bunch of hooligans in a mob terrorizing a city for the sake of fighting for injustice when they know there's no consequences for any of their actions. So that's the thought process. I mean, again, hopefully this becomes consistent across all things. And if you arrest people, and I have not been shy about calling for the arrest of all of the protesters who break the law. If you fight a cop in the middle of New York City, you should go to jail. Like, you should be arrested and tried right then and there. Not, oh, let's make sure we don't upset them up. No. Bring in as many police officers, the military if necessary, to arrest anyone and everyone breaking the law willfully. Because at least at that point, you'll know that the people who are there actually believe what they're believing. And if your goal in a protest is to change the hearts and minds of a greater populace, the populace knowing that you believe what it is that you're protesting for helps change those minds. These protesters in this abortion clinic are going to change more hearts and minds than the thugs in Minneapolis or New York City or Philadelphia or any of the places that are just being overrun by mostly peaceful protesters. Anyways, to get to the story just a little bit, this is more from that Thomas More Society, which I thought was interesting. Let's see, where are we going? The prosecution relied heavily on a primary witness. I'm not going to mention her name, it doesn't matter. Who participated in and was arrested at the Mount Julian prayer event with these guys' client, a guy named Paul Vaughn. But later turned state's evidence. The government attempted to paint their client as willingly deceiving the police during the gathering at the Mount Julian prayer event, despite witness testimony from a police negotiator who testified that Paul was both helpful, collaborative, and peaceful. So the police themselves said that one of the people that was found guilty of these two, conspiracy and the FACE Act, he was helpful, he was collaborative, he was peaceful. Despite the police's own testimony, he was found guilty of that. The government also attempted to paint their client as intending to interfere the operation of the Mount Juliet facility using paper-thin evidence, this is their words, as a member of a criminal conspiracy, despite no evidence of prior knowledge of the event. So this guy, again, I don't know, but it looks like, at least what these guys are saying, is just kind of walking around, oh, look it, an event that is supporting a thing that I believe in. I'll go participate. And got hit with and found guilty of a conspiracy against rights. I don't know how every single day, my wife and I get increasingly more swayed to the side of buying lots of acreage somewhere in the middle of nowhere and just creating a fortress. Like, every single day, it looks like a more and more appealing direction. And this is not dissuading that want anymore. The government also attempted to portray their client. The government also presented an abortion-determined woman who apparently had a scheduled appointment for an abortion but left because of the protesters. They failed to say if the protesters blocked her from going in or just made her feel bad. Because I am all about making them feel bad. That's fine. Well, I guess in a loving way, not necessarily making them feel bad intentionally for the sake of making them feel bad, but more of, hey, this is what you're doing. Do you really want to do that? I'm all about that. Now, forcibly physically denying someone entry to a place, yeah, that's a problem. But it doesn't appear, I don't know, by the looks of that protest, does it appear that they were doing that sort of thing? My guess is no. And the lady that had a scheduled appointment for an abortion said she left because of the protesters. Okay, well, if they weren't blocking your interest and you were just embarrassed, it's fine with me. And also, probably not illegal. Federal attorneys included an abortion business employee who claimed to be trapped inside the building during the incident. Despite the video, which you've all seen, there's multiple videos out there, that showed traffic clearly passing down the hallway to and from the abortion venue. Bottom line is, all of this seems very, very weak. The trial is going to be appealed, obviously. A sentencing date, again, which they face up to 11 years, is set for July, I believe? July 2nd. But holy cow, the consistency. The inconsistencies in our legal system is freaking maddening. You know, I don't know how many of you gotten hit in the comment sections with, well, that's whataboutism. Whataboutism is the dumbest effing stupid, infantile, childish argument that has made its way to prominence, probably in the history of language. Well, that's you're saying whataboutism. Well, no, whataboutism is consistency. Whataboutism is, hey, maybe we should be consistent from this to that. Like, considering the fact that conservatives seem to be being prosecuted for political purposes across the spectrum, it's not a bad thing. If you say, well, what about this over here? What about this over here? The lefty media and the ideology leaders have said, well, that's whataboutism, as if it's a bad thing. I think everybody should be on board with consistency. So this whole idea of you pointing out, well, you're just using whataboutism. Yeah, correct. Whataboutism means consistency, and consistency across everybody, regardless of their political ideology, their race, their ethnicity, their religion, is a good thing. So anybody who tries to use that as a negative is an idiot. And they should know that they're an idiot. This whole whataboutism. Stupid. Well, we rambled on that one, so let me get to this before we get out of here, because I think this is interesting, and I didn't know that this was possible. A judge in Delaware apparently vetoed the voted on and approved salary of Elon Musk for his role as CEO of Tesla. I didn't know judges could do that. And I honestly don't think that, well, anyways, here's what happened. You may have seen this headline come across, and I kind of dug into it a little bit to kind of be able to explain it. But a Delaware judge voided Tesla CEO Elon Musk's $55.8 billion pay package from Tesla, which obviously is stock options. They did not give him a $55 billion check. And there's so many people reporting it and talking about it who are apparently nincompoops who don't know that that's how pay plans work at that level. Nobody wrote a check for $55 billion. I don't think anybody has the ability to do that. Anyways, in 2018, the board voted on a payment package for their founder and CEO, Elon Musk. Actually, I don't know if he founded it. they voted on a payment package for the CEO of Tesla, Elon Musk, that included a salary that he probably deserves considering it's one of the highest valued companies on the planet. But how this happened was insane. The judge vetoed the $55 billion pay package on Tuesday, according to a filing potentially delivering a hit to the tech billionaire after a shareholder argued the package was excessive. Now, I don't want to complain constantly about the news media, but I don't know if you know what I do for a living. I do this show and that's all fine, but I make my money on the road as a stand-up comedian. I go on tour with the Turning Point Tours and do some bits there. I also have my own stand-up tour that we do, and that's where a lot of the money that I make comes from. In other words, I am a comedian at heart making jokes about the news. And if that's the case, why is it that I'm the only person, it appears, aside from all of the news media, if you look at the entirety of the coverage of this, why am I the only person that apparently had the thought of, oh, a shareholder? This was caused by a single shareholder? Well, I'm a shareholder at Tesla. Could I have done this? Could I have filed a lawsuit that caused a judge to void a CEO's pay that was approved by the board that manages the company in the private sector? I guess. Oh, I don't know why I was the only person that apparently thought about this, but I did. And so I went down the rabbit hole of, okay, well, who filed this lawsuit and how prominent of a shareholder was he? Or they, I didn't know. Could have been a woman. Turns out it was a dude. A guy named Richard Tornetta was the one who argued that Tesla's board breached its fiduciary duties by awarding Musk the performance-based plan, which is insane. Again, all of this is nuts. The fact that, I mean, I guess, you know, the board is responsible to the shareholders, but just wait for it. Just wait for the point. I guess I understand the idea of the shareholders being able to question or even influence the board. That makes total sense to me. But the Tesla board approved this pay package, which is entirely based on performance. So if Elon Musk did not perform and Tesla as a company did not perform, none of this would be up for debate at all. But since they did perform and Elon Musk did deliver and Tesla has grown massively, now a judge says that, wait, you made too much money. In what world, in a free market world, or as so much as we have a free market, is this a thing that can happen? I had no idea that a judge can veto somebody's salary. But it gets even better. This guy, Richard Tornetta, who filed the lawsuit saying that the board awarded Elon Musk too much money, despite the fact that it was performance-based, guess how big of a shareholder he was? You know, big, massive player, obviously, to be able to derail the CEO and biggest owner of Tesla. Actually, I don't know if he is. I know that 40% is owned by institutional investors, but I don't of that. He owns about 20% of Tesla. But I was you know, you have to be a big fish to be able to derail the CEO of their salary based on performance, right? Okay, well, let's just break this down really quick. Tesla has 3,176,000,000 outstanding shares of their company. Now, of course, this big playing shareholder, Richard Tornetta, clearly has a huge amount of stock in this company, right? No, out of the 3.1, almost 3.2 billion shares, the guy that filed the lawsuit that caused a judge to veto the salary of the richest man in the world owned 9 shares. In other words, this guy owned 0.000000000% of Tesla, and somehow filed a lawsuit in which a judge deemed that the CEO of the company was getting paid too much. I didn't know a judge could do that. I didn't know that if you own literally any percent of a company, you can go ahead and just sue the CEO, I guess. Sorry, it feels like I have a bug here. Huh. There's so many things about this that are disastrously confusing. And also, like I said, I don't know why I was the only one that thought to look into this. Like Fox News didn't, it wasn't in the Fox News article that I read. It wasn't in the NPR article I read. It wasn't in the CNN article that I read. It wasn't in any of the articles that I read. I finally found it on a Reuters piece from February of last year, how much this guy actually owned in Tesla to be able to file this lawsuit. But also, all of the news media, all of those same news media that I read, apparently don't understand that appeals exist. And an appeal process is like a whole thing. Because every single person was reporting this as if it was fact. And the same people that were reporting the whole E. Jean Carroll, $83 million from Donald Trump was like, oh yeah, that's definitely going to happen. No. Tesla's able to appeal. So the only thing that this idiot did was cause the company, and therefore the shareholders, to spend millions of dollars in legal fees in the appeals process to almost guarantee have the same exact result. I don't know. I don't know if this is as crazy to all of you as it is to me, but it is nuts. By the way, Tesla stock is up 800% since this lawsuit was filed. In other words, that guy's 9 shares is now up 800%, and he's complaining that the guy who got it there is making too much money. He's also being hailed as a hero in some of these other articles. There was I think it was a Politico piece. It might have been The Hill. I don't know, but I remember read this fawning thing. No mention of how many shares this guy has, but this fawning. He's a drummer in a thrash metal band, and he's taken on the CEO billionaire. It is becoming increasingly more difficult to be as flabbergasted as I generally am, but also, I don't know, I can't help but be flabbergasted. Anyways, geez, that'll do it for us today. Appreciate you sticking around, tuning in. If you haven't already, give me a follow on any of your social media accounts. I mentioned that I do stand up. I don't know if a lot of people that watch this know that, but yeah, we tour the country. I will be this March through May. Holy cow, it's a long tour this year. But I will be on the Spring Live Free Tour with Turning Point USA. Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens headline that. I'm not the headliner. I just go on and make silly jokes in front of them. I also have my own comedy tour that you can find at freedomcomedyevents.com. You can get tickets there. I think the only one we have announced is Corona, California on March 16th. But those tickets are selling wildly fast, which honestly kind of worries me. There's a lot more pressure to do a good show if tickets sell really fast. But anyways, you can give me a follow on any social media accounts. Just type in JOBOB. We will see you tomorrow, same time, same place. I feel like I should mention this, but we're going to be gone all next week. And I don't know how meaningful that is to any of you folks. But if it is, and you watch every day, I appreciate you doing so. But we will be on vacation, for a minute. So, anyways, appreciate you sticking around, tuning in. We will see you tomorrow, same time, same place. God bless America.
And a mini skip.